Welcome to Executives at the Edge, a podcast brought to you by MEF. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. Join me as we explore thought-provoking perspectives from the leaders and changemakers who are propelling enterprise digital transformation forward. I'm really so excited to have Jeremy Villalobos. He's the CEO of Orchest. And today we're going to cover really about some very intricate challenges that telecom providers face. We're going to interconnect all the telecom provider networks together to provide end-to-end connectivity for business networks from any site in the world to any other site. And that takes a ton of automation. And we talk about how does this actually happen? And Jeremy's going to really help us understand this challenge. So Jeremy, welcome to Executives at the Edge. And with that, could you give a little bit of introduction about yourself and Orchest? That would be appreciated.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Pascal. Very excited to share another episode on your podcast. I'm Jeremy Villalobos. I'm the CEO of Orchest. Been in the industry for almost 20 years, focusing on the Latam region, understanding, the challenges and experiencing all the sides of the business. I've been involved on the product management, data center, cloud computing, also on the B2B wholesale. So I have a good understanding of the business and been utilizing that knowledge to create automation to make better the industry. So that has been the focus on Orchest. Orchest is a Latin American carrier. We have been in business for over 11 years. Also focusing in Latin America, but with a very unique business model around automation. Our backbone is a automated platform in which everything we do is automated, and we're aiming to continue pushing the envelope in terms of efficiency and streamlining business processes that are much needed in our industry. So thank you again for having me, and I'm looking forward to this chat.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's brilliantly said about, automation is going to be very, very critical now going forward. So what do you think is driving the market needs for automation? And what do you think the challenges that companies are facing?
I think one of the biggest things is customers are really demanding a better experience. If you look at the way we do business, it's kind of the same way that we have been doing it for the past 15 years. It's kind of, we have been evolving in terms of the products that we offer facing the customers, like cloud computing, data center services, IoT. Back in the day, it used to be M2M, machine to machine. But we haven't really looked at the inside of the house and say, how can we improve the way we do business? How can we streamline our business processes? How can we go from legacy systems into more scalable and useful technologies that are there that didn't exist 10 years ago? You now have blockchain, you have AI, with specific applications that can be very useful in our industry. Also, they are very scalable platform, cloud-based, that companies can use. And in order to have an automated strategy, obviously your business needs to be automated and ready to scale without having to really scale your resources internally. So I believe in the last couple of years, last 5 years, I believe customers really said enough is enough. I need a better experience. I want to be able to do more with you guys, and I believe we're going through a transformation period in which very few are going to be standing at the end because it is not just sustainable. Customers are walking away from a bad experience and a bad support, and it doesn't matter if you own all the fiber optic in the world. If you're not providing a good customer experience, customers are not going through. So it's very interesting times that we're going through, and it is a transformative period. And I believe MEF is playing a fundamental role with this, because at the end of the day, it's really putting the foundations for anyone that wants to embrace this journey in a ecosystem and a community in which you can find anything that you may need, from blockchain, AI players, cloud computing, software companies. Everyone is part of MEF, and that's the beauty of the community.
And I think that more importantly, automation is a must-have, right? And in order to be a must-have, they have to think about automation within their networks and automation through the whole supply chain. And so it's not just about the experience comes from both parts, which are very complicated. So what do you think are the challenges? I talked to many operators around the world. Some of them are smaller and they go, I don't need automation. I got people, they're cheap. They can make the changes to scripts and so on. But in reality, everybody expects a cloud-like experience from the telecom ecosystem. So any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think, people think that automation, it is doing everything at once. Obviously can be overwhelmed to look at the strategy that way. I believe you have to start with the most critical processes in your organization, and then narrow down into other things that are important for the business. On the Orchest side, we said we're not going to do more budgetary pricing, and we're not going to take weeks to do a feasibility analysis on the network. In order to achieve that, you need to have a good and solid network inventory management. You need to have the proper system managing that inventory. And then you also need to have, a business intelligent way of creating pricing. So we created an algorithm that not only verify the geolocation of the fiber, but also do the address validation against the customer location. And at the same time, looks for the most affordable way, creating a profit and loss on every opportunity that is created. So at the end of the day, you're removing a lot of the manual process that used to be back in the day with a pricing specialist, network engineer doing feasibility analysis, the salesperson, doing a lot of administrative work with the CRM. So when you streamline and you remove all those bottlenecks and you're providing a quotation in a matter of seconds, you're becoming more efficient because sales is focusing on selling. You really don't need a pricing specialist. Probably you can reassign that resource into something more efficient that brings more business to the company. And then the sales engineers are creating solution and managing the network instead of doing feasibility analysis. So it's not really about replacing automation with replacing humans with automation. It's about having those resources doing and providing the most for the organization in terms of value and profitability, instead of doing just manual work that doesn't impact the bottom line of a company. So it's a unique way of looking at the business. You have to be very strategic, but understanding the real value and the return of investment of adopting automation. It's not about having a pretty platform that customers like how it looks. It's really how much you can do with automation with less resources. For example, we do around 10,000 quotations a month with Orchest. If in order for me to do 10,000 quotations manually with people, I will need probably 1,000 people. We don't have 1,000 people in sales. I don't want to tell you how many salespeople I have, but it really comes down to doing much more than you can even imagine manually. So it becomes a no-brainer to adopt these kind of technologies.
So I think most people are concerned about how do I get on this journey? So what you're describing is the business aspects of the enterprise asking for a quote, and that maybe has to go downstream to all of these supply partners and get that information. If it takes 3 months to get a quote, the customer kind of says, that's a pretty bad experience. Imagine me going to Amazon and asking and trying to get a quote on a product and waiting 3 months for an answer.
Exactly.
It doesn't happen in life. And I think they expect telecom to be the same way with that. In the past, that never happened. So what are you saying now? You're saying that they expect a quote to happen right away to know whether they want to buy their service, no matter whether it's in the footprint of that provider or through its supply chain. It should be all automated, and people shouldn't be involved. That's kind of what you're saying. Is that the first part of the journey that is like a mandatory?
I want to explain a misconception of the automated experience, because uh, everything came with the automated experience of cloud computing. When everybody saw that you can enable a virtual server in seconds, select the resources that you need, the computing power, everything, and then boom, you had a server up and running. People start expecting the same from connectivity. Of course, you can achieve that when you're connecting between data centers. When you have infrastructure in place, equipment, everything is light up. It's very easy to turn on a connectivity like a cloud computing server. But when you're dealing with the last mile of a company or a building that there is fiber going into the building, there is always an installation that gotta go through the process. But but we shouldn't go through a 120-day installation timeframe to activate a last mile wherever it is. Obviously, we're used to dealing with very complicated countries in Latin America. Those are developing countries. Same thing with Africa, Middle East. You may experience very challenging last mile processes, enablement, because of the infrastructure is not like in Europe and the US. So you have other challenges that you gotta overcome through automation. But if we can streamline all that process and eliminate all the manual work, all the administrative work, many companies, they take out of the 120 days, they spend 90 days doing administrative work, processing orders, passing from different hands through the process to finally start an installation process. So I don't believe it's going to be, well, it will happen. Of course, it will happen, but it will take a lot of time for countries like Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela to be fully automated all the way to the customer premise. I believe, obviously, we can get there eventually. But we have to streamline the processes as much as we can without impacting the customer and the time to market. So these platforms and these technologies allow you to really streamline as much as you can that process and really going through the real process to enable that last mile. So there are many things that we can achieve through automation. Obviously, there are other services that you can also offer from security, SD-WAN, SASE, and all these solutions that in some form rely on a network solution. But it is important to understand the nature of the business and understand the real expectations that we should have with how we function. We don't have virtual servers sitting on a data center that you can enable and turn them off and on however you want, because at the end of the day, you have infrastructure sitting there that you can put them to use in a different way and make it more profitable. So there is a lot of probably a misunderstanding of the on-demand concept, because people, in some way, they're trying very hard for everything to be turned up in a matter of minutes. Yeah, there are some things that we can, but there are other things that we cannot. Probably in time we will, but I believe it's all about removing the garbage out of the process and really going through a process that the customer can understand and appreciate how it evolves in time.
So do you believe quote is pretty easy to get automated, or does quote also have to rely on what's available at the right site, what services? And I understand that Latin America has even more problematic issues where understanding the right address and getting that correct is important, because if you give the wrong address, they'll say, no, I don't have the source, but yet the source exists. Can you help our listeners understand this problem more?
Yeah, I believe there are two different challenges. No, first is how good is the network inventory data on the carrier side. How good do we know how much infrastructure it is out there? Believe it or not, there are some companies that they don't know 100% where their infrastructure is until they go and check, the conduits and see if they have fiber in there. And this is the reason of multiple acquisition throughout time. there wasn't a really inventory of the infrastructure. So the better the inventory knowledge that there is on the carrier side, the better, and how organized and managed it is through a specific system, you can then verify availability on the network side when a customer is requesting a quote. So there are different layers of understanding the network. One is going all the way to each one of the fiber pairs and how much availability of bandwidth it is on each one of the lines that you have throughout a specific city. And then you have sub-layers when you probably don't know exactly the availability per capacity, but you know the geolocation of the fiber. So okay, we don't know 100% the availability of the infrastructure and the capacity, but we know the geolocation. That's good. So the more we know about the network, the most accurate we can be when providing that technical feasibility analysis. Can we go all the way to the internal plant? Do we go only to the external plant? So those are things that you evaluate against what you know and the data that you have available within your organization. And then it comes the outside part, which is the address validation, which has been a massive challenge for all the software companies and the platform providers and especially the quoting tools. We went through that issue with Latin America because Latin America is very complicated. I don't even know the formats in one single country in Latin America. So imagine when you have someone from Asia looking at address in Latin America, and to make it even harder, the customer didn't provide the complete address for the provider. So you have multiple challenges on how to really hit that location that the customer is looking for. So we created an algorithm that actually talks to all the public domain, and as long as that company is registered on the public domain, not only on Google but multiple sources on the internet, by knowing the name of the company and the city where that company is located, we can find that location. So it's not necessarily to have 100% the full address, as long as we know the name of the company and the city where it's located, and it's registered on the public domain, which most of the time they are registered because they're companies. We can find it. And then if for some reason it is a new location, you can always do the lat long and to find also that location. So when it comes to MEF, I believe the community is doing something great with the tokens and the geo ID locations to make it easier for customers to find locations. So the more we work around, the different ways to find a particular location, the better for a customer to land a quote. So it's all about reducing that error rate. In our case, we have been able to make it all the way to 99.6%. So we have a very small percentage of error. And the more we use it, the better and more accurate it gets in time. It took us a lot of years to really do that. At the beginning, we were working with databases, and then we understood that we were limiting ourselves if we work only with a database of addresses. So we move into a dynamic algorithm in which we're verifying against the internet, which is constantly, evolving and adding more locations in time.
I think what we're realizing is that the internet is, you just pass packets in and it shoves out the other side. We don't know what happens, and everybody's interconnected in some weird way, but everybody has an internet connection too. And so many people don't understand, like, what are you talking about? Why do we need to have all these connections? But in reality, businesses don't trust the internet for anything mission critical. So they buy business networks, and these business networks have to be designed in a way of either buying fiber, or they're buying wavelengths, or carry Ethernet, or they're buying just IP, private IP. And these are interconnecting their sites together in a private way. So that's what you're describing. And that interconnecting in the private way means you need to have the addresses, you have to connect circuits, and no one has a circuit end to end across the planet. So it involves other operators, and all of this ecosystem and supply chain has to come together in an automated way is the complexity we're talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah. At the end of the day, no one owns everything around the world or in any region. You always depend on someone else to create that particular line that the customer is requiring, especially when you're talking about connecting Argentina with Germany, for example. There is not a single provider that is going to own that complete route for a customer. So the more companies are embracing automation, the better interaction and more efficient we can be within each other. We had a different approach in Orchest because automation adoption in Latin America is below 1%. So we couldn't find reliable APIs out there to bring other networks into our platform. So we decided to start bringing the network infrastructure data on the platform and doing the actual verification and the whole feasibility analysis for our partners. But it is not sustainable in time to do it that way, because the more partners I have on the platform, the more data I need to refresh every once in a while. So that's one of the main reasons we launched Orchest Automation, which is a software company to help other companies have a quoting tool to process network information and provide accurate quotes, is so we can have more better APIs around the market. So the more companies are using reliable quoting tools, the better, because we can have a much efficient interaction. And it's all about trusting the APIs that you have connected to your systems. That's one of the biggest challenges in time. It's important that we're starting now, but the more companies embracing the journey, the more efficient we're going to be in time for the end customers.
So thank you, Jeremy, for this really, really insightful episode. I think it's really brilliantly what you said throughout this whole episode about what is the challenges it faced. And certainly LATAM, there's so many different languages and representations. And now we look at worldwide, it gets even more complicated. So at MEF, we've been solving this, and we just released our new API release, our SDK, that solves that for an API, you can have many very address representations, and that's now released. But what representation you put in there is critical. And I think at Orchest, you've done that for LATAM. You figured this out, so that's brilliant. Hats off to you. And thank you again for this wonderful insight.
Thank you for having me, Pascal. Always good chatting with you, and thank you, MEF, for the opportunity.
Thanks for joining us for Executives at the Edge. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe today. Share online a review. Find all our episodes on your favorite podcast platform and at MEF.net.